Alright, it's your boy Bones back with another video. This time we're going to be focused around the character Batman. We're going to be facing off against Riddler, Bane, and Joker. Alright, let's get it. Alright, this first gameplay, we're going to be facing off against the Riddler character. This particular deck is based around the character Batman. And the concept of the deck that I built is that Batman is a superhero that has no real superpowers. All of his ability to fight bad guys is using Batman's gadgets and his own physical, fighting. So the deck I built has no instants or sorceries. All of the removal that I use to fight against my opponent's creatures or different permanents they put into play will all be based on enchantments, artifacts. I got a battle built into the deck, as well as I think a planeswalker or two. So right away, my first opponent, he's throwing some big creatures into play. I threw out the Tinker's Tote, which gives me a couple of gnome tokens. Right now, my opponent has a little bit of size advantage on me with a 5/5 creature into play, so I'm unable to attack into him. He, of course, is going to attack me. I'm going to use my gnome artifact creature token to chump block. Go ahead and sacrifice my Tinker's Tote to gain me 3 life. Debating whether or not I want to use this artifact equipment that I got. One of Batman's tools, but I decided to throw in the big bat himself. I got a big 4/4 flying creature. What's Batman without a bat? So my opponent throws in a even bigger creature to face off against. Both of these got trample, so it's not looking good for me. He has an ability which gets his other creature out of his hand into play. This is a lot of damage coming my way. Not looking good for me so far. I'm really debating on how I want to block this, because don't want to take all this damage. Can't really afford it. I think the game would be over quick if I do. So I decided to double block this way. Oof. Big hits. My bat has an ability that when it dies, it turns into a land, which you can get back. So it's a pretty nice ability. It also has life link, so I gained a little bit of life off that block. Got tough decisions to make here because my opponent has quite a bit of a board state, and his 6/6 creature, which is a boar, that thing doesn't leave the battlefield and go to the graveyard. So if I did kill that, it would go back into his library where he can redraw and replay it eventually. So I bring my big bat back with its ability. So even though it dies, it's not gone forever. My opponent plays a Forge, Urbrax Forge, very annoying card. Decides to attack with his 2 biggest creatures and one of the tokens that the Forge creates. So I'm in a tough position right here. It's not looking good for me. Debating which way I should block here. Decided to double block the 5/5 creature. The 3/3 and the 2/2, they both die, but it's a trade. So he loses a creature, I lose those two. Puts me in a bit of a bind.
Riddle me this. What kind of a man has bats on the brain?
So I got a few plays here. I decided to put out the Aetherblade Agent. It has Death Touch. And I put out another Graveyard Trespasser. Takes one of the things out of his graveyard. Gives me a life. Attacking with this while my opponent has no cards in hand allows me to draw a card. Since it had lifelink, that 4 damage was also able to gain me 4 life. So we're both sitting at 13 life apiece. The game's not over yet. Seems like we're at a little bit of a standstill, a little bit even in terms of life total. My opponent probably has some tough decisions to make at this point, because he does have the upper hand in terms of the biggest creature on the field. But since I have a lifelinker creature, even though I will take damage, I can deal damage to him and gain some of that life back. My opponent's taking quite a while to make up his mind here. He decides no attack. Interesting choice. So all the items in my hand are either artifact or enchantments. Like I said, this deck features no sorceries or instants. Sorceries and instants represent like actual magical power in the game. And just like you know, in the superhero world, Batman has no, you know, superhuman superpowers like a Superman or any of the Marvel X-Men characters and stuff like that. So this deck being built with no instants and sorceries represents Batman. So Glass Casket is a form of removal. Debating on whether or not I should use that, but I decided to attack in with Aclazotz. So I use Glass Casket as a bit of removal. It's an artifact as opposed to, like I said, sorceries. My opponent still decides to do nothing, so I believe my opponent back against the wall since he didn't steamroll me right away, and I was able to you know, build my life back up with Aclazotz. My opponent's now just sort of top decking for answers as to how to combat against me. I obviously have a lot of choices of my own to make, so kind of debating on which plan of action I should take. I decided to throw in and play the Thunder Lasso. This would be the equivalent of a tool on Batman's utility belt. I also decided to use that. My opponent decides to scoop. Too much. Alright, on to the next gameplay. This time we're facing off against Bane. Alright. Not bad opening hand. I got 3 lands in hand. I got a bat. Like I said, what's Batman without a bat? My opponent's playing green and white, it seems. Okay, he puts in a pretty small 1/1 creature. I have no play at the moment. Both those were coming into play tap, so wasn't able to play anything on turn 2. Ooh, Innkeeper's Talent. That's a pretty good enchantment right now. That will give 1/1 counters onto creatures. Because he has the Hardened Scales enchantment, that actually puts 2 1/1 counters on him. So he already has a 3/3 in play. I really want to remove this, but I also want to peek into my opponent's hand and just see what other cards he has available. So I throw in the Deep Cavern Bat. He's got 2 cards in hand I could take. I decided to take that one. That's a new sorcery card. It's able to get back something from the graveyard, I believe. Okay, now he has a pretty big creature here, 7/7. Down to 10 life. This is not looking good for me. If I don't come up with something quick, I'll be done for. So, throwing to play Kaido, one of my favorite planeswalkers.
Right, let's clean up this mess.
Kaido's a ninja.
Stay alert.
Kind of represents Batman to me, in my opinion. So.
Now this is epic.
So here's another small creature, but here comes a big threat here. He's got a Johnny as a planeswalker.
I was born in it, molded by it.
Because of the Innkeeper's that enchantment, that allows his counters to be added not only to creatures but also the planeswalkers that come into play. So he's able to go for a Johnny's ultimate activated ability right away. Just not looking good for me. So I didn't draw a card. That's really detrimental to me at this point. I decided to use Kaido's ability to draw a card. I did get a land. That's good. So ossification is a removal. That's an enchantment. I decided to attack into his Ajani and take him out that way. Okay, so he puts in an Ozolith. That's another. It's an artifact that adds more 1/1 counters to creatures. So all of these things that are able to boost his creatures go from small little 1/1 creatures to now I'm looking at 7/7s with lifelink. So it's not looking good for me here. I I decide to block one of the life linkers. That creature, because it has Death Touch, takes out one of his. My opponent's getting a bunch of creature tokens at the end of every turn because of Johnny's ultimate activated ability. So even though I'm able to wipe out stuff, he's able to just bring more tokens into play.
I can run circles around you.
Yep, I'm in a bad spot right now. This is not looking good for me. I'm debating on how I can remove enough threats off the board to keep myself alive, but right now my opponent's at 31 health. I'm at 7. One big hit is gonna take me out. I decided to use this. This is a form of like semi-removal. Because I targeted tokens, it's able to remove those and not allow them to be brought back into play. I go for my only move here, which is attack with 1/1 creature. But you can already see here, I have one creature able to block. My opponent can hit me with at least 2 different things that each one would take me out. So Bane won this one against Batman, unfortunately. On to the next game. Alright, this last game I'm against Joker. Let's see if Batman can get a little redemption and win this last game. My opponent's avatar is the same as mine, just an older version of Teferi. So, I wonder what tricks my opponent's got up his sleeves. He's got a 1/1 creature into play with flying. Okay, he's got an enchantment that boosts all flying creatures. Alright, I throw out an artifact that is removal based on the artifact. I decided to throw a creature of my own into play. Graveyard Trespasser. Takes this creature out of the graveyard that I just killed, and allows me to gain 1 life, and my opponent loses 1 life in the process. So he's got another flying creature. So, I believe Gix, this is the best play. Being that I didn't draw a land, I definitely want to get in for an attack and allow myself to draw a card. So, of course, my opponent decides not to block because I was able to deal damage to my opponent. I can draw a card off of that. Luckily, I got a 4th land. I decided to use Candle Trap, which is another enchantment based that's semi-removal. Okay, so he's got Kite Sail Larcenous. This is somewhat a form of removal that's used off of that creature. Okay, so I put into play this Invasion of Gobakon. This allows me to look into my opponent's hand. I get to select 1 card that will cost him 2 more mana to pay for. He's got a spell pierce in play. I did think about or in his hand. I did think about selecting that, make it a little harder for him to play that. But ultimately, I believe I can play around spell pierce. So
Why so serious?
So that enchantment I play allowed me to boost my graveyard trespasser to be a 7/7 temporarily, dealing a lot of damage. My opponent's down to 9 life. If I can keep the pressure up, I should be able to get a win here. Okay. My opponent decides to send that back to my hand. That did cost him, however, because Graveyard Trespasser has Ward, which makes my opponent discard a card in the process. Unfortunately, I don't have a target for this because he sent that creature back to my hand. I'm not able to boost my creature, so unfortunately I have to just pick one of his. It's a temporary boost, so not really that big a deal. So I decided to throw Graveyard Trespasser back into play. I believe that's the best play. I got other options, but Tinker's Taupe, thinking about this, using one of Batman's gadgets here, or at least a bag of gadgets, so to speak. But Graveyard Trespasser seems to be the best option. That grabs that creature he's got out of the graveyard and does ping him for another point of damage. Alright, so my opponent decides to swing in for an attack of his own. Dealing 5 damage. Ooh, this ain't looking good. So, my opponent going for a flying strategy, putting a lot of creatures in the air. If I don't have a flying creature of my own, I'm unable to block what my opponent has. I decided to use the bat. Batman's bat coming to the rescue. Decided to take away his unsummon. That would have been a little annoying if I had to encounter that in the wrong spot, so to speak. So debating here if I should go for attacking his battle, or I should say my battle. He's defending it, but you know, that was my card I put into play. That gives your creatures a pretty good boost if you're able to take away the counters off of that and flip it. But I decided my opponent, his back's against the wall with 8 life. So if I continue to pressure his life total, that may cause my opponent to kind of like back up on attacks against me. He does have a blocker, because even though the candle trap does prevent his creature from attacking, it does allow him to still be available as a blocker. So he didn't take any damage there. Again, he has a pretty dominant flying strategy, just able to go over the top of any of my ground-based creatures. So only thing I have to block here is this Deep Cavern Bat, but I decided to use a little surprise of my own. Every decision you make in this game is something you have to think about from time to time. So I decided to throw in Rooftop Assassin. Another Batman-esque character, since Batman is more or less a rooftop assassin of his own. Glass Casket is a artifact-based removal piece. So decided to use that against his lantern bearer. So my opponent, he's got 8 life, no blockers able to block. I do have off my creatures a total of 7 damage, but because of the creature that was in his graveyard, took that last point to win the game. So Batman wins this one. Alright, thank you for watching this video. I'll be back with more content, more videos, more ideas. Thanks for watching.